Hello, my name is Mayuri, and today I'll be presenting on the brain and teaching you some facts about the brain. And just a reminder that we're going to have a quiz at the end of this session, so please pay close attention and make sure that you understand everything that's being said, especially the brain regions and their functions. So firstly, I'm going to introduce a bit about what the brain is. So what is the brain? Number one, the first thing to know is that the brain is located inside your head. So inside all of this, you can see the brain. And the weight of the brain is around 1.4 kilograms, which is about the same weight as 8 apples. So it's not very heavy, right? And the brain makes up everything about who we are, our personality, the way we move, the way we talk, the way we think. Everything is defined by the brain. And because of that, the brain is considered very complex. So complex that it's often called the most complex living structure in the universe. And in fact, many active scientists today actively studying the brain still do not have a full understanding of what the brain is and how it works. So isn't this really fascinating? So now I'm going to play a little game. So I'm going to read a statement, and I would like for you to think of whether the statement is true or false. After a brief pause, I will then switch the slide and go to the next slide and reveal the correct answer. Let's see how much you know about the brain. So the first statement is that the brain is pink in color. Think about your answer. The answer to this is false. The brain in reality is gray in color. So as you can see in this picture over here, this is a picture of a real brain. And as you can see, it clearly is not pink. So even though the brain is presented pink in many pictures and animations, and even pictures in this PowerPoint, the truth is that the brain isn't actually pink in color. It's more of a gray color. Our next statement is that smarter people have bigger brains. This statement is also false. Brain size has nothing to do with intelligence. In fact, Albert Einstein, the very famous scientist who came up with the theory of relativity in light, his brain was actually smaller than most people's brains, yet he was so smart. This means that how big your brain is or how big your head is doesn't mean that you are smarter. It doesn't matter. Our next statement is that the brain doesn't feel any pain. Think of whether this is true or false. In reality, this is true. So yes, the brain does not feel any pain. So let's look at this picture over here. Here, you see this man strumming a guitar while his brain is being cut open during surgery. Yes, this is the thing. Because the brain does not feel any pain, surgeons, which are doctors who cut open parts of bodies to help fix them, these surgeons can operate on the brain and cut inside the brain while you're awake. And look at him, he's also strumming a guitar at the same time. Isn't that amazing? Our last statement for today is that we only use 10% of our brain. This statement is false. We use 100% of our brains. If we didn't use all of our brains, then why do we have all this brain? And also, if we only use 10% of our brain, then we probably would not be able to function very well. So every part of our brain is important. It's not just one region or a few other regions. Every single region is very important and crucial to our well-being and survival. So now we're going to go through some of the brain regions. These are the major brain regions that we're going to be talking about. And I will be going through them one by one and walking through where they're located and what their functions are. So the first brain region I'm going to be covering today is called the frontal lobe. So the frontal lobe is located in the front of your head over here. And the frontal lobe is the largest part of the 4 lobes of the brain. As you can see here, it's very big, and it's especially big in humans. Do you know why? Think of what sets humans apart from other animals. Is it intelligence? Is it strength? Is it speed? Yes, you're right. It's intelligence. So the frontal lobe is involved in what we think of as intelligent behaviors, such as making decisions, such as solving problems, and such as planning different activities. So for example, if you've ever planned a birthday party, that is involving the frontal lobe of your brain. If you've ever solved a math problem, that uses the frontal lobe of your brain. So this big area is called the frontal lobe. And one way to remember this is that the frontal lobe is like the front door to your brain. And when this door opens, you can see Albert Einstein coming out. And Albert Einstein is a very smart man. So the frontal lobe helps make you smart. The next brain region that we're covering is called the occipital lobe. So this is located at the very back of your brain over here. And this is one of the smaller brain regions. As you can see, it's a lot smaller than the frontal lobe and the other lobes. And when the occipital lobe is damaged, then you go blind. So what do you think the occipital lobe does? Yes, so the occipital lobe plays a role in vision. It helps you see. And one way you can remember this is that occipital sounds like octopus, and you can think of an octopus with many, many eyes on its tentacles. And these eyes help the octopus see. So therefore, the occipital lobe helps you see. Now, the next brain region that we're going to be covering is called the parietal lobe. So this is located around the middle of your brain, and it's this blue region here. It's kind of medium in size. It's smaller than the frontal lobe, larger than the occipital lobe. And when the parietal lobe is damaged, then you can't sense things and you can't pay attention to things. So what do you think the parietal lobe does? Yes, so the parietal lobe plays a role in attention, in detecting motion or movement, and in sensing different things. So one way you can remember this is that when a piranha fish bites you, then you feel a lot of pain. So the piranha helps you sense pain. And piranha sounds like parietal, so therefore the parietal lobe helps control how you sense different things. Our next lobe and our last lobe for today is called the temporal lobe. And the temporal lobe is located right above your ears over here. And it's also quite big in size. Again, still smaller than the frontal lobe. The frontal lobe is the largest, but larger than the occipital and around the same size or maybe slightly larger than the parietal lobe. So this temporal lobe here, when it's damaged, then people often go deaf and they can't hear anything. So what do you think the temporal lobe does? Exactly, that's right. The temporal lobe helps you hear. And one way you can remember this is that, look at this man. He is playing the drums and the sound is music, which is coming right to his temporal lobe, right above his ears. And the temporal lobe is above our ears, so it helps in hearing. So that is one way you can remember what the temporal lobe does. Now we have 2 more brain regions which are very important and crucial to our well-being and our survival. So these 2 are located at the bottom, at the base over here. So the first one is called the cerebellum. And when the cerebellum is damaged, then often people fall down. They can't stand straight. They can't walk properly. they have difficulties moving. So what do you think the cerebellum does? Exactly, that's right. The cerebellum helps in maintaining balance. So one way to remember this is that, look at this man here. He is walking on a tightrope and he's holding two bells on each side to balance himself. So as you can think of it, cerebellum means that it helps you balance. And that's because you can think of the man holding the two bells to help balance himself. And our last brain region for today is called the brainstem. So the brainstem is just all of this region at the bottom of your brain down here. It's above your neck, so it's right at the bottom. And when the brainstem is damaged, then people die. So what do you think the brainstem does? Exactly, that's right. The brainstem keeps you breathing. So in karate, there are certain moves where people attack this part of your body, and that can make people fall unconscious and go into a coma. And that's because that part targets your brainstem down here, and which is a very sensitive and vulnerable part of your brain. And if that is damaged, then you'll have a very hard time staying alive, breathing, staying awake. You'll most likely become unconscious. And one way you can think of this is that the stem to a plant is crucial for its survival. If you cut off the stem of a plant, it dies. The same way, if someone cuts off the brain stem or the stem of our brains, then we will most likely die. So it's very, very important to our well-being and our survival. Okay, great. We finished all of the brain regions. So now it's time for a little quiz to test what you've learned so far. So I'm going to go through each question and then pause for you to think of your answer and then go through the answers. So my first question is, what is this brain region? Exactly. This brain region is called the frontal lobe. And my second question is, what does it do? What is its function? Its function is to make decisions, to plan things, and to problem solve. Essentially, it makes you smart. Remember, think of the front door to your brain and Albert Einstein. And also think of the frontal lobe being the biggest part of our brain, making humans smarter than other animals. My next question is, what is this brain region? This brain region is the temporal lobe. And what does this brain region do? This brain region controls hearing. Remember, think that the temporal lobe is above your ears, so it helps you hear. And think of the man playing the drums. My next question is, what is this brain region? This brain region is the parietal lobe. And what does this brain region do? This brain region helps you sense different things, it helps you pay attention, and it helps you detect movement. Remember, think of the piranha biting you. Piranha and parietal sound similar, and you're sensing the pain from the piranha bite. So parietal lobe helps you sense things. The next question is, what is this brain region? This brain region is the occipital lobe. And what does this brain region do? Remember, think of octopus. Exactly. So this brain region helps you see. Think of the octopus, which sounds like occipital, with many different eyes on its tentacles, which helps the octopus see. And our Next question is, what does this region do? Sorry, what is this brain region? Yes, this brain region is the cerebellum. And what does it do? Exactly. This brain region helps you control your balance. Remember, think of the man with the two bells trying to balance himself. He's using his cerebellum. And my last question is, what is this brain region? This brain region is the brainstem. And what does it do? Think of the stem of the plant. Yes, this brain region keeps you breathing. It helps you stay alive and keeps your heart rate going, makes you breathe, and just controls your basic functions that keep you alive. Okay, so now we're done with the quiz. I hope you all did well, and I hope you all learned something from this quiz. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me. My name is Mayuri at mhg1@rice.edu. I really hope you enjoyed this lesson. And these are all the sources that I use for my pictures and for my different ideas. Thank you.